moving into the second key theme of responsibility. So we basically have a responsibility to be of service. My favorite way that I saw this described was that basically life path sixes are born with an overactive responsibility gene. And this clicked on so many levels. I mean, basically it talks about like you take on responsibility even when it's not yours. Like you just have a sense, like we life path sixes just have a sense for where there's slack in the chain of command, and we just naturally take up that slack. We just naturally take responsibility for anything that needs responsibility taken of it or not, right? Like sometimes it's not our business to take responsibility for things, and we just can't help ourselves. So this is where I say, like, when I look at the list of life path sixes, there's a lot of oldest siblings on there. And then there's some other people who have a slightly different story. But I was thinking, I told the story about my friend who sends out, my friend who raised her niece when she was like 8 years old. She was taking care of a baby because that was just the way her life manifested. And then another one who was talking to me about how like her parents were very irresponsible in general, like emotionally volatile and just doesn't have their shit together. And so she wasn't the oldest, she was the middle child, but she still felt like she had to take responsibility for her parents. So yeah, like even if you don't manifest as the oldest child, you still manifest life circumstances that allow you to exercise this overactive responsibility gene. It goes back to the need to be of service. Basically, how that winds up being wired inside of us, it's that we wish to feel so needed that we are indispensable. We want to be so needed that we are indispensable. And then we grow eventually because that sucks up our freedom. It usually eventually pollutes our physical body because we're not taking good care of that. On and on, we eventually grow to resent being indispensable and pushing against this thing that is hanging on us now, that is totally dependent on us because we set it up that way. And that's called not having healthy boundaries, right? Like taking responsibility for things that really shouldn't be your responsibility, to where now they're dependent on you. And after you live that for a while, it gets easier to realize like, shit, yeah, I wasn't supposed to take responsibility of this. Here, how do I get out of this? How do I get out from under this responsibility now that I have? I've been there more times than I can count, let me tell you. It did say that because of that sense of responsibility, though, that like life path sixes do very well in business and working for themselves usually, and that's a whole other thing, but that doing well in businesses where you're serving other people. So that instantly reminded me of Cecil K's in the grocery store, and how like I put it that I have a knack for customer service. I'm good at customer service. I can look at people and see on them like I can spot somebody who needs help. I, interact with them at the cash register and like use reading their energy at that point to help me do that. Like I'm good at customer service. I want every single customer leaving satisfied with a good experience. And that sense of responsibility is why I pay attention, because I'm responsible to the satisfaction of my customers. And it's just, you can't get around it. It just is. And, responsibility to what? To anything that matters to you, responsibility to the happiness of my family or of the well-being of my children, or like whatever it is that's important to you. That sense of responsibility, it's unmatched in the other life path numbers. So yeah, and it also said when your life is in the trenches, it's a 6 who shows up with a shovel. And that is, I've been in that boat more times than I can count also. And that's because like once we believe in you, or once we believe in your cause, we give everything. We give everything. It's all for you. It's all like we're just trying to give it all away. We're just looking for a reason to give it all away because that's how we're wired. That's who we are. And so again, this goes back to that first point of like learning discernment, learning when to give it all away and to what extent, how much to give and when and to who and all of those pieces. But if a life path 6 believes in something, they will use elbow grease, they will give everything that they have access to, use every tool in their toolbox to make sure that there's success found for you in whatever it is that you need. And this reminded me of a friend of mine who her house was like just really messy, and she was like wanting to get it cleaned up, but she was telling a story about how, she'll start to clean it up and then she'll get sidetracked because she'll find something and then she'll want to go look at this and go look at this. And she's like, and then I just don't get anywhere, and she's talking about that. And I'm like, I mean, I can come there and I can help you and we'll do it. We'll get it done. And in 3 hours, we completely decluttered and organized her craft room, which was her spare bedroom. And it had, you couldn't see the floor. The shelves and the tables and everything was just piles of stuff. And the closet was completely packed full. Also, we didn't get into the closet, just the room itself. That took like 3 or 4 hours. We hauled like countless trips out to the dumpster of throwing things away. And it was like she would get sidetracked and I'd be like, no, look here, this is important to you. You want your room clean, so we're going to get your room clean. And it's like, I had all the power that we needed to get that task done. And I don't care if her room is clean. That doesn't do anything for me, but it does something for her. It gave her that space where she felt like she could breathe and she could let her creativity flow. And because she was going to have an easier time letting her creativity flow, I knew that like spending more time in that aligned place is going to benefit ripple effects throughout her entire life. And I want that for her. I want any well-being that I can help secure for her. So I spent like 8 hours driving over there, and like it was like an hour and a half drive to get out there, and then spending all day cleaning in her house with her and keeping her on task to like clean the house, and leaving with like, I transformed that space for her benefit, right? Like I gave that whole day to her for her benefit. And I felt magical about it. It was like one of the best things I'd ever done because we literally filled that room full of my love for her. She got to witness for hours with no break, with like just constantly working from start to finish, from the room being a complete wreck to it being a completely organized, productive space. And I did that for her, like giving our time and our energy and our attention to help the people that we care about solve problems is literally how we show love. It's how we demonstrate affection. It's our being there-ness. If the chips are down, you call us and we're there, period. If you're our people, we're there. The loyalty is fierce. And so, yeah, there's a lot that you can read between the lines on behavior like that. Never did I tell her like, hey, I'm doing this because I love you. But like my dedication in those few hours proved it beyond any measure of doubt at all to her. So it's like that. It's like we live by example. We demonstrate the depth of our feeling in how we behave. And when we're full of the self-love that we talked about in the first theme, the energy that we radiate outwards to everyone else in our lives is that same love. It's that unconditional love that we've been giving to ourselves to help ourselves feel as good as we can. That's the energy that just automatically permeates into every moment that we rendezvous with anyone. And before, I'm thinking back to like 5-10 years ago, like I wasn't full of love. I was full of lots of other things, and full, like to capacity, full of anger and resentment and feeling misunderstood and feeling like I gave everything to everybody and nobody gave anything to me. and on and on and on. That was what I was full of. And the energy that permeated every single one of my rendezvous just set up more distance between me and every single person in my life, where that's the vibe I'm putting off, is like, you suck and I gave you everything and you gave me nothing. And like, then they weren't nice to me. Imagine that. But now that like I love myself and I practice cultivating that self-love every day and have for years now. And now, I mean, like, this isn't meant to sound like conceited or full of myself, but like, people love me. People love my energy. You can just tell, because I'm a dose of love. I'm a breath of fresh air in a world full of negativity. I walk through their lives and it's like they can breathe for a second. They get to connect to the vibration of love because I'm looking into their eyes like a dog, like that's kind of how I see myself. But it's all about like, why are we doing it? Where is this energy coming from that we're giving away, and then how do we manage that energy? How do we cultivate more of it? How do we expand our ability to give love to an even greater level? Like, these are life path 6 questions that are really worth spending some time answering, because again, these key themes, they go back to, I want to make a positive impact. I want to do good. I want to create value. This world will be a better place after my life is over, because I'm dedicating every single day of my life to figuring out, how do I make it a better place? How can I help one person at a time find more joy in their lives? Like going to my friend's place and helping her clean out her craft room so she had space to create. Like, she's a full-time creative. She needs space to create. So I felt like that was an investment in her happiness. That was an investment in the well-being of her business. All of these things, and just the overall flow of her energy. I helped her clean up her energy space, and there was nowhere else I would rather be. Like, that was so delicious. But I can't go knocking door to door and be like, hey, can I come in and help you clean up your life? Like, those opportunities have to present themselves, And so this is where that sense of responsibility, there's a challenge in that, right? Like, this sense of responsibility makes us rock solid in the loyalty department, but at the same time, like, we can get into trouble. Just like in the service area, we give and we give and we give, and we're so generous with others. But if you go too far with it, there is absolutely a breaking point where now you're hurting yourself by doing that. There is such a thing as giving when you shouldn't, Not always is that the right answer. Sometimes it's time to rest. Let's see. Okay, so this is, let me preface this point by saying, when I work in the realm of what I feel like is my spiritual work, I get off on getting people to love themselves more, teaching people how to have a higher degree of self-love and facilitating their self-empowerment, their recognition of their own power, such that now they recognize it. So this isn't just a spike in their happiness for this, 30-minute conversation. This is an awareness that they get to keep for the rest of their lives. That's really super delicious. And so as I go through, their natal chart or whatever it is that we're talking about, and I'm presenting to them, what I see as their superpowers. And sometimes when I present, this is your superpower, they're like, yeah, a lot of good it does me, like, God, that's how I get into trouble, and that's how blah, blah, blah. And like, they got a bad story about how they wish that wasn't true. And basically, maybe you already see where I'm going with this, but life path 6s, and I'm including myself in this because I had a real moment yesterday when I was going through this particular part of it. Responsibility is one of our superpowers. And I can guarantee you, if you're a life path 6, you've said, why do I always have to be the responsible one? And that's not loving our superpowers, right? That's absolutely calling this a curse instead of the blessing that it is. And that was huge. And that's what I want to ask, and as like a food for thought type idea, How does it feel to be the responsible one? Because it's heavy, right? Like being the responsible one is a heavy burden, if you're not looking at it as a good thing, chances are you're giving too much away. You're not putting enough in your own cup and you're giving too much to other people. And so I think that's maybe a good barometer of how to know when you've found the right balance between giving to yourself and giving to other people, which I think for Life Path 6 is one of these ideas that we circle around over and over and over again. This idea of like pushing it to the max again and again, like giving everything away again and again because it's so fun to give. And then I have nothing. Fuck, and this is just as uncomfortable as it was last time that I gave everything away and now I have nothing. It's like that. It's like realizing how to recognize, like when I very first started this idea of recognizing this as like my gas tank, using that as an analogy. And like, I don't ever want to get below a quarter tank. If I have a quarter tank, it doesn't matter what anybody needs from me. I'm unavailable. Like I only have a quarter tank. And as much, like it's about to make me cry thinking about having to say no to somebody who really needs my help, because anybody who shows up in front of me, I'll give everything. I will, and I still want to. And the only thing that stops me is knowing how many times I've been in the middle of nowhere with an empty tank and nobody's there to help me because I'm in the middle of nowhere with an empty tank. No cell phone service, no resources. It's miles and miles and miles to the nearest assistance. So I guess you're just on your own and you're going to walk, but you're exhausted. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. Now you just got a hard minute and nobody to face it with because you're here all by yourself. And I've been through that desert of a moment enough times to know I don't give away the last quarter tank. I don't, period. That has to be a hard line in the sand. And so that was my first expansion of like, I don't give away the bottom quarter. That's mine. I have to have it to be able to get back to home, to be able to like get back to the gas station and get more gas to keep going. Like I need that last quarter tank to go back to the recharging process, like, so that's important. And now I try to like, basically, if you want to continue on with the gas analogy, like picture my car and my gas tank is full all the time because my whole back end of my car is full of gas cans. And every time I drive a little bit, like even just a little bit, I use 1 gallon of gas. I pull over and I put 1 gallon of gas back in my gas tank and now my tank is full again. And every single person I pass by as I'm out there driving around with my full tank, I stop and I give them a little gas. And I stop again and I give them a little gas out of the gas tank, out of the gas cans that are in the back of my car. And then every morning, I also go to the gas station and I fill up my tank and all the gas cans and I go again. And so that is what I'm talking about with like this expanded capacity where, like as a Life Path 6, I know you know what I mean when I say you run until the tank is empty. You give until there's nothing left. And that moment, that emptiness is haunting. It's haunting because it needs to be, because we need to stop doing that. So that's good to understand. We need to keep that last quarter tank. And then as we get better and better and better at managing our energy, the in and the out of our energy, we are expanding our capacity. Like now we have this extra gas can in the back because we're really good at sourcing our own energy from inside of us. We have a greater capacity to find that energy inside of ourselves. And every time we get better at it, there's more gas cans and more gas cans and more gas cans in your vehicle. And so now how far can you go on 1 tank of gas? Well, it's not just a tank of gas, it's a tank of gas plus all these gas cans. So your tank would get you 400 miles, but you also have another 400 miles just in the gas cans. So now you can go 800 miles. How many people can you help if you go 800 miles compared to if you can only go 400 miles and then you're dead? then you're burnt out in the middle of nowhere, and who knows how long it'll be until you have gas enough to share with somebody else. So it's like that. It's like, what if you refilled your whole gas tank every single day? What if you had all of these gas cans that you could just put the energy in there as you generate it, and like get so good at filling your cup that your cup is overflowing gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons and gallons of gas every day that's extra. You don't need it. You feel so good that you have all this extra to give away, and then you give it away to anybody who shows up and wants it. Like, that's unconditional love. That's like, I don't care where this lands. It's just going to land somewhere because I'm going to send it out. And let it be that simple. Like, don't try to force somebody to take our gas and then be all offended when they won't let us help them. Because I know I've spent some time on that road before. So the lessons around this responsibility theme, this responsibility superpower, the first lesson is learn how to enjoy the responsibility we have. Like that motherly energy. Think about it. Like, the kid doesn't survive without its mom. Like, the mom plays a really important role. The responsible one plays a really important role. And there is so much creation and so much generation and regeneration that happens on top of that foundation of responsibility that Life Path 6s provide. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and if it's kind of a reality check in any moment, it's going to change, week to week, month to month, year to year. How does it feel to be the responsible one? And if ever it doesn't feel good, I would back away from those responsibilities, because chances are you're overgiving. And that's where that's coming from, because it should feel good to give. If you're giving excess, there is nothing more satisfying than giving and giving and giving and giving until, like, I look at it now, how I used to say I'm not giving away the last quarter tank. Now I say I don't dip into my tank for other people. My tank stays full. I don't give away my gas. I keep my gas, and everything that I have in those gas cans is up for grabs. I don't even care who takes it, but somebody take it, because I need that space, because I'm going to generate more energy tomorrow. So I work on getting more and more and more gas cans, building my capacity to flow this energy more and more and more. And meanwhile, I don't give away my energy for somebody else. And that's a self-love practice. That's a prioritizing myself. There's a term that fits perfectly here, that's selfish giver. And I think Life Path 6s, we are the ones that need to learn this more than anybody else. That, like, if you give and give and give until you have nothing, what are you doing? How are you being of service if you don't have anything to give? So the idea of being a selfish giver is to take really good care of yourself such that your capacity to give is expanded, and the longevity of your giving is expanded, and the consistency of your giving is enhanced. Like how I was before, going so hard until my tank is empty, and then I'm like depressed and crashed out for a month, and I go hide in my little hole and blame the world for everything, and like just don't see anybody and don't do anything and fuck everybody and on, and just like cut myself off. And now I'm not being of service, and so that doesn't really sit right, which is why eventually I get over it and go back out there, because I know at the deepest levels of my being that I need to be of service, and I can't do that when I'm in a room by myself. And so there's this divine balance between loving yourself so much and taking such good care of yourself that your ability to love and nurture gets bigger and more powerful with every little bit of self-love that you give yourself. It's a beautiful concept of you can actually serve the planet by practicing your own self-love. That's really the best thing you could ever do for the planet, because every time you practice your self-love and it gets a little bigger, that's another gas can in the back of your car. That's one more person that's going to get a gallon of gas from you. And so that self-love is like this loop of like pointing this powerful love that we have to give and like taking it and wrapping it back around and pointing it at ourself. And it makes this, like, picture that love as this energy, this light coming out of your heart space. And like it's going out, and we always are trying to find somebody to point it at, somebody to love and take care of and be of service to. And now imagine that energy kind of like loops back around and lands right on the top of your head and just like washes down your entire body. And now what you have is this continuous loop. Like it's a closed circuit within yourself. You're sending out the love and you're receiving the love, and that's self-love. And that is where this energy generation comes from. This like added capacity. The better you get at closing that loop and like letting that love run powerfully through you, that's how many gas cans you have in the back of your car. That's like upgrading to a semi, because that's how much gas I need to haul around. You know, like that's where I'm headed. It's like I want a tanker truck and I want to be like toot toot, and that's more like a train, but maybe a train someday, like multiple cars, like those FedEx trucks that have like 3 trailers all hooked together. Like you need more and more and more space because you're so good at anchoring into this vibration of love. And we do that most powerfully when we root into it from inside of ourselves, which means we have to be able to receive it. And that's the part where like early on in my life path 6-ness, I was so powerfully sending love out, and I was waiting for somebody else to send it to me. And that person just like never showed up. And eventually I figured out like, I have to turn this around. I have to like point my own love at myself, because like nobody else is here to do it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, because now, I mean, like I said, now I have a full tank all the time and a whole trunk full of gas cans that are full of energy that I've made that I can give away to other people. And so my ability to be of service in this world, which is something I've always known that that's what I need to be doing, my ability to do that gets better and better and better the more I love myself. So it's a beautiful, beautiful process. Another lesson with the responsibility factor is to learn the difference between helping someone and interfering in their life. I haven't said it yet, but the word smothering comes up. And this is very interesting because I've known this about myself. I called it drowning. I talked about it in the episode Mermaid Life, where like I feel like I want to go so deep with someone that I almost drown them at that depth, that like I hold on to them for too long and it does something wonky to their energy. And I've seen it enough times that like it's like they overdose on my energy. And in the Life Path 6 literature, it basically refers to it as smothering or suffocating or being overbearing. And honestly, like it felt so good to wrap my mind around the reason that is because we want so badly to be of service, and because we are inherently harmonious and loving beings, that we have such a knack for figuring out how to like achieve the greatest harmony in any one moment. And so, for example, like, you know, you see somebody doing something and you just know that, hey, if they did it this way, it'd be a way easier ride for them. So you just go tell them like, hey, you should be doing it this way. And they're like, fuck off. I mean, like how many times has this happened where you're just trying to help? This would be so much better for them. And so here, let me tell you my great idea. And then they don't freaking want to hear it. They don't want your idea. They don't want you to try to make it better for them, because go away. I can do it myself. And okay. That's what I'm talking about with when we, like my early path was like, I just wanted to help somebody. I just like needed it. It was like driving me in this way that I didn't fully understand. And I found so many people who did not want my help. That was like everybody, basically. And again, it eventually brought me to this place where I realized I need to help myself. I need to point my services at myself because I'm not that happy either. So while I'm out here trying to help everybody else to be happy, I'm not that happy. Maybe I should just start by practicing what I'm preaching. Maybe I should just start by, taking good care of myself and see how far that gets me. So that was a little over 5 years ago. And I would say it worked. It was a very productive choice to point my servicing nature at myself and service my own needs so fully that, loving myself and prioritizing my needs got easier and easier, and my capacity to love others grew in perfect correlation with my ability to love myself, how that grew. So the two are absolutely linked together. And it's when we are over nurturing, it's when we're, needing to be of service to someone to feel valuable instead of just loving ourselves and knowing our value. We're trying to source it by doing something for somebody else. And then you need somebody else to be serviced by you, and lining that up when you need it like that, it's just basically impossible. And so you just hit brick wall after brick wall after brick wall until we learn that we can really only help ourselves. And from a place of our own well-being, other people may show up who in the perfect moment have a question that you can answer. They may have a problem that you're the perfect one to solve it. Like my getting to go to my friends and help her with her room, that could not have worked out more perfectly, but never in a million years would I have ever scripted that that's how I'm going to help her, that just unfolded. That's what it was. And I was right there. I was down because she's my friend. So yeah. So I'll move into the true essence of a life path 6. We'll go through these real quick because we've talked about a lot of them so far. Quintessential home bodies. I thought that was interesting because absolutely, that basically they have a lot of things in their home that they nurture, or they probably want to, or should probably not the right word, but that, for example, it said once a life path 6, if they have kids, it will be almost impossible for them to be away from their kids. And this is how I feel about my dogs and my cats, mostly my dogs. But yeah, I don't like to be away from them. I just really don't. I have 85 houseplants that I also don't like to be away from. So it's like that. And it even said, even if you don't have children, if you choose not to physically have kids yourself, you will still find something to nurture. And that basically the essence of a life path 6 is to let that motherly energy flow, first to ourselves, and then to anybody else who rendezvous in that unfolding, let them come to you kind of way. But what I'm finding is now that I'm in a more stable place where my energy is consistently happy, I used to worry a lot, in the early days, the first year or two of practicing this, I'm I can't commit to anything because my energy is all over the place. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm miserable. I could never schedule a public speaking event because how do I know when I get there that I'm going to be in any kind of mood to go do that? And now I don't ever have that fear. I feel like I've practiced my self-love enough that I've gotten to a place where my energy, I wake up basically every day and I'm happy because I love myself, because my needs are met. And I know that because I meet them myself. I don't wait on somebody else to do it for me like I used to. And that is so empowering. And the more empowered I feel, the more I'm able to do what I really love to do and help other people feel their empowerment. So it is so worth it to invest in ourselves and our own self-love. The last point I have under the true essence is that they're solidly true to their personal values, that it's very difficult to work for others, especially if prevailing values are different from theirs. So this reminded me of my job at the software company where the whole culture was about money. That's what the point of the company was. Obviously the company meetings, that was the whole point, was everything, here's all the money we're making, here's all this and all of these things. And then also, like, the way that they rewarded us was a lot about bonuses, like cash bonuses, giving us money. And that is just like not my top priority. I want a job that pays me more than money, like in the realm of soul level fulfillment, in the realm of being of service to others, in the realm of like doing something that actually makes a real impact in the world. Um, that's the main bonus I'm looking for from my work. And so, 5.5 years of being at the software company, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I felt ready, like my soul was ready to do something that mattered. And I knew, like, for me personally, being an entrepreneur and like running my own businesses, like that's definitely right for me. But even if you're a life path 6 that like doesn't want to be an entrepreneur, to find a cause to work behind, to find a vehicle that's like actually doing something that helps people like in a real way, probably where you are face to face with the people you are helping, is going to be really satisfying, whatever that ends up looking like for you. And the last thing, the art of the life path 6, learning how to love yourself so much you take exceptional care of yourself, thus giving you the energy boost to expand your nurturing wingspan into even greater realms. So I think that basically sums it up, that you love yourself so much that the power of the love that you have to give to other people is, it's nothing like we can achieve when we just try to love them, like loving them, it's a one directional stream of energy. And when we love ourselves, it's that closed loop where energy just amplifies inside of the closed loop, and it just goes faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. When we send it out, eventually our gas tank is empty, period. Like, it costs energy to send out, like it costs gas in your tank to send out energy to somebody else. But when we love ourselves, it fills gas back into the tank. So that is absolutely the secret to that. And real quick, I'll run through the Life Path 6 Soul Joy spread that I mentioned at the beginning. This spread is included in the Light Seers Tarot, the little guidebook that comes with it. And so the first card is your gift. So Life Path 6s, what is our gift? What gift do we give to the world? And the card I drew was Major Arcana 19, the Sun. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just took a couple notes that really stood out to me. One is this idea of wholeness, that this is the gift that we bring to the world, is this wholeness, and shining our essence and warming the planet like the sun, which makes a lot of sense as you think about like this motherly energy and demonstrating and sending out unconditional love, and just in general putting more light into the world, like letting more and more and more people feel more and more love. Like that's really that gift. The second card is Illumination. What can we illuminate for others? And for this, I drew the Major Arcana 9, the Hermit. And this card is all about looking within for healing, looking within for your own wisdom. And as I read the Light Seers book for this card, the very end jumped out at me where it said basically that, we are eternally healing and yet already whole all at the same time. And so the idea that Life Path 6 illuminates this for other people. And again, there's that idea of wholeness coming up in 2 out of the 3 cards. And then the third card is the Lessons of Joy. Where can my lessons of joy be uncovered? So for the Life Path 6, this is Major Arcana 16, the Tower. And the Tower is really about rebuilding after destruction, and the idea that the only things that ever get destroyed in our lives are the things that aren't meant for us. And so if something crumbles, to let it happen and to rebuild and put the pieces back together in a way that your life is even better than it was before. So the idea of learning through experience and being grateful for the experiences that were the practicing ground for our soul healing. To recognize that any stages that we moved through where things fell apart in the end, that we learned a lot by going through that stage, and we're better now because we learned all of those things. And to be grateful that, in the way that things fall apart, all the pieces to rebuild are right there. And every time we rebuild, we're better than we were before. So, I picked out some of these repeated ideas between these three cards: wholeness and healing. And again, when you come back to Life Path 6, I think that makes a whole lot of sense. That really we demonstrate that we're most powerful at gifting the gift of unconditional love when we love ourselves. And if that's not demonstrating wholeness and healing, I don't know what is. So I hope, my dear Life Path 6 friend, that you have enjoyed this, that there were nuggets in here that helped you to love yourself that much more, that helped you love your past experiences that much more. Anybody that's ever come into your world where you felt like you had to be the responsible one and that wasn't fair, thank them for helping you to figure out when it's time to take responsibility and how to use that superpower diligently and to wield it with real skill and precision, where you can take responsibility for things that make profound changes in people's lives, and to take responsibility for your self-care and take responsibility for the creations that you put into this world that make it a better place. There are so many things where that sense of rock solid responsibility can serve us. It's foundational. And yet learning how to wield that superpower, it takes a minute to figure out how not to overdo it. So anybody who ever showed up in your life and reeked of irresponsibility, like you needed to be the one to step in and do it, just send them a little bit of a good vibe and thank them for where they were on their path as they crossed yours, and everything that you learned from them, and the ways that you conduct yourself more productively, more healthily now because of what you learned from that relationship from them. So there's so much to learn. Like that Tower card, there's so much to learn by going back through the things that fell apart. And especially when we look at them and understand that, only things that weren't meant for us are going to fall apart. And that every single time something falls apart, we land in a place that's better suited to who we really are. And to let that happen, like I've said it before, and I'm pretty positive, it was like a new phase of all hell breaking loose, but I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say, if there's something in my life that's not meant for me, let it fall apart. Let it get out of my way so that I can go on and do what I came here to do, which is be of service in the best, biggest, most profound way that I can. I stay open to that all day, every day, to the best of my ability. Everything that I do, every ounce of self-care that I do is in the knowing that this is how I invest into mass consciousness. This is how I nurture the entire planet. I start with myself. I take such good care of myself that I amplify the love through my being such that the whole world can feel it. And I really think I'm getting somewhere. So yeah, I so love sharing this space with you, my fellow Life Path Sixers, and I look forward to rendezvousing with you on many more episodes of this I Learned podcast. But until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.